Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Union Streamcast. Once again, we are here with my good friend Bill. This is our last preview show before the show goes live, before Vinyl Siding goes live on May 14th, 11 a.m., guys, but you'll be able to catch it anytime on YouTube. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube right now, you subscribe, hit the little notification bell so that you keep up to date with everything with me and Bill. Bill, we've had a great share of shows so far, and this is another one in the hat right now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this is the fourth one already, and we're doing a really, really iconic album tonight. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is arguably one of the most influential albums that's been made by any band ever.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun show. We got our great friends from Brain Damage with us that are going to be reviewing the album. But before that, I wanted to touch base on a couple things first for our sponsor, Rosenfeld Dental Associates, located at 1095 Inman Avenue in Edison, New Jersey. Rock your smile with the Rock Doc Dave Rosenfeld, voted one of the top dentists of 2021. Go out, tell them, make sure you tell them that Rock and Roll Union or CT sent you, and they'll make sure that they really hook you up well, guys. Also, this Friday night, man, we're going to be hanging out at McStew's. Rock and Roll Union will be in the house. We're partnering with Magnetar Concert Promotions, putting on 6 Second to Mars, a Motley Crue tribute, as well as Final Warning, which is a female-fronted metal tribute to all the classics, all the classic metal, from anything from Motley Crue, Skid Row, Metallica. They got a whole arsenal of stuff that they're going to be showing. So that's Friday night at 8 o'clock. And our guests coming up, man, I'm really proud to introduce them. We're going to be bringing them on one at a time, so bear with us. Here is Walt, Ryan, Larry, and Tony. A big chunk of the band, Brain Damage. Guys, how are you? Let me hold on for 1 second, guys. It would be very helpful if I unmuted your mic.
There you go. Yes.
Doing good. Good evening.
All right. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I wanted to, before I get Bill does a phenomenal job of giving us some insight to where the album picks up as far as the band's tenure and career is concerned. But I wanted to touch base a little bit on Brain Damage before we get into Dark Side of the Moon. But how long has Brain Damage been around, and how many pieces? And I know, really want to tell everybody, man, really excited for the Landis Theater show this coming Saturday. Really happy to have you guys come on and plug that as well. So can you give us a little rundown as far as Brain Damage is concerned?
Brain Damage has been around since 2004. It's Larry, myself, and Tony are original members from the beginning, and we have Ryan, who's been in the band over 10 years now. Mike as well, our bass player. Our newest member is Tony Bertelli, who's not here with us tonight. He's got to work, but he's actually very new. He's been with us about 6 months, we have two female backup vocalists. They kind of rotate in and out. These ladies have been with us for a while. Mary Beth Ventura and Victoria Evans, who happens to be daughter of this guy, Chris Evans, who was a sound man for us years ago at Bonnie's Rock Club back in the day. So really, really fabulous singer. We've been doing this a really long time. I've consistently played the same places, same type of stuff over and over and over again. So the Landis is going to be really nice. It's our first time there at that theater, so we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be good.
So the one thing that I wanted to stress to our viewers is how great the Landis is. The Landis has really opened its doors. It's kind of made it a great place for me and Bill, because for us doing Vinyl Siding coming up, it really seems to be the home of the tribute bands, but they do have some really top-notch bands like Kix, Striper, headliners coming through those doors as well. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna revisit Brain Damage towards the end. There's still a little bit more I want to talk about the band, but I want to get on to Dark Side of the Moon. And Bill, could you give us a little lead in?
Oh, sure thing. Dark Side of the Moon was released in March of 1973, but most of the work on the album itself, and we're adding Eric to the conversation here as well, looks like. Most of the recording and planning of the album took place over the course of 1972. Pink Floyd in 1972 was a thriving concern in Europe and especially in the UK. They were a top 10 band consistently in the UK. But at that point in time, they hadn't really cracked the United States yet. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The first is generally the songs were a little bit esoteric and somewhat lengthy, so they didn't really get a whole lot of airplay here, except fairly late at night. I mean, some of the stations in New York where I grew up, WNEW used to do them at midnight and fairly regularly, so they developed a following. But you didn't really hear them very much during daylight hours. The other thing, and the band actually was pretty aware of this, was regarding what record label they were working with. Pink Floyd at the time recorded internationally for EMI, which in the UK, EMI was a powerhouse. EMI, of course, were the label that the Beatles recorded for, and Pink Floyd, like the Beatles, recorded at Abbey Road Studios. So they worked with a lot of the same personnel, like Norman Smith, their original producer, had been the Beatles engineer. Alan Parsons, who had a big role in Dark Side, had worked with the Beatles as well previously. EMI did not do a very good job of promoting popular music acts, though, in the United States. EMI's affiliate here in the States at the time was Capitol Records. And Capitol Records got spoiled by having first the Beach Boys record for them in 1961 and then the Beatles starting in 1964. EMI took the attitude that they didn't have to promote rock and roll. It would find its own audience. And Pink Floyd really got hurt by that, I think, in a fairly big way. And Roger Waters and Pink Floyd's manager at the time were acutely aware of this. It wasn't an accident, and we're getting a little bit ahead of the story here, but it wasn't an accident that Dark Side was the last Pink Floyd album that was released by Capitol/Harvest Records here in the States. They had pretty much had it with them. Yep. But what Pink Floyd wanted to do with Dark Side was to get a little bit more commercial, but they also wanted to stay within a concept. They wanted to make something that told a story that had commercial impact at the same time. And interestingly, the concept they came up with, for want of a better way of putting it, I think the quote that was attributed to Roger at one point was they wanted to sing about things that made people angry. Things like dealing with relationships from people who weren't straight, dealing with death, dealing with the possibility of madness. Obviously, while they didn't deal with it to the extent that they ultimately did with Wish You Were Here, there are allusions to Syd Barrett and his physical condition on Dark Side, certainly. So the idea was to come up with a unifying theme that could be a concept album, but didn't necessarily tell a unifying story. It was just getting to discuss different things that would cause people to elicit a reaction. And in that regard, they did a really, really good job. The songs they came up with are iconic, both in terms of the lyrics. Dark Side is the first album where Roger Waters owned the lyrics 100%. But it also is a great musical album. People like to say when they talk about Pink Floyd that there are three great solos that David Gilmour recorded. One of them, of course, is the one from Comfortably Numb from The Wall. But the other two are on this album, Money and Time. The solos on those songs are fantastic. Rick Wright makes a wonderful contribution as well. And one of the things that's interesting about the album is its use of technology. This is really the first album where Pink Floyd embraced synthesizers. It's probably one of the first where they really got deep into using tape loops and special effects. They had used them a bit before, I think, on metal especially. But in this album, those types of tricks are all over the place. And I think Alan Parsons had a fair amount to do with that, too.
So before we go, like, track by track, I just want to go around the room and say maybe favorite tracks off the album, initial ideas starting on the album. What would you say is like to you the highlight of Dark Side of the Moon? What are your favorite tracks off of that?
Us and Them is one of my favorites. I like the lyrics. I like the way it rolls along. I actually like Brain Damage and Eclipse quite a bit. Money and Time are great. After you hear them and play them so many times, it kind of loses its effect. But Us and Them and Brain Damage Eclipse, I just like the lyrics and the whole way those two flow. Really, the best on the album.
How about you, Ryan? Some highlights off this album?
How do you not say that the entire album is amazing, right? But
right, of course.
To pick one, I think it would be Time. It's an awesome piece guitar-wise, and I had a chance to really listen into the rhythm part of that song, and I've dissected that song. It's taken years, believe it or not. Everybody knows how to play it, but it's taken me a long time to dissect the rhythm parts out of there and really trying to recreate what you hear on that. It really is. It's been a journey itself, and just getting to play the lead, learning how to use a pedal, an old muff pedal, the one he used to record that, makes a big difference in the way the distortion breaks up and such. So, playing that lead is amazing. Just getting a chance to play that lead is amazing. So I'd have to go with Time.
We have a comment for, I'll tell you what, this One Watch Daily has been blowing us up since we started today. They're big fans. They have a lot of comments here, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up that they brought about was the sax solo on the album, which I'm a big fan of as well. Larry, what are your favorite tracks, favorite things off of this album?
So, like Walt, I like Us and Them. That's probably one of my favorite songs. It's such a cohesive piece, like Ryan was saying. I can't just listen to one song on the album. I got to like put it on and play it all the way through. It just feels right as one piece of music. The way that they flow into each other. I like Breathe Reprise a lot. I like the lyrics in that a lot. Lyrically, the pictures that it paints and the imagery that it paints are really, really interesting. I like Any Color You Like a lot too. I love the instrumental that they do in that. It's got a really nice keyboard riff that Rick works on, and it's not one that a lot of people seem to mention, but it's one that's really fun to play. It's got a really good groove. I really like Rick a lot. I like his keyboard playing on it. So that's another one. It's hard to pick one.
How about you, Tony?
Larry kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but I've always liked "Speak to Me, Breathe." I've always liked Any Color because rhythmically it's very interesting, which is another reason why I would choose Money. 7/8. Not a lot of people, write pieces in that time signature. It's fun to play, but really the tunes that I really gravitate towards that album. When you look at it lyrically, it's so introspective, and it's a piece of its time. And what it really makes one think about is really your relationship to yourself and your relationship to the rest of the world. So things like Speak to Me, Breathe, and Time, and Money, and Brain Damage, and Eclipse, all touch on those different aspects of your relationship to yourself and how you relate to the world.
Bill, favorite moments on this album?
Tony stole a little of my thunder as a bass guitarist. Money was the song that captivated me immediately. First, the riff in 7, but then cutting into the solo and going into a 4/4 blues with the overdriven guitar that David Gilmour plays, and the engineering tricks that Alan Parsons does on that track, where he goes from a very wet mix with a lot of echo and reverb to then in the second part of the solo, it's a very dry sound where the guitar and the drums are just there as if you were in the room with them without any processing, and then it switches back again. I mean, it is really a phenomenal cut. I mean, in one way, it's easy to say that it's played out. I'm sure that all of us have heard countless terrible bar bands try to cover it, but it is such a wonderful piece of music in and of itself. I mean, I think the album would have been a hit had the rest of it been relatively weak, but that song was still on it. But then, to the other point that I think one of us made, it's an album that to really get the full impact of it, you have to listen to at least one side of it at a time, if not the entire album. It is just so wonderfully structured.
I got to say, for me, I'm a lifelong writer. I have my degree in English. I'm a lit guy. I've always been a literature guy. For me, Brain Damage and Eclipse are my favorite moments on the album, just because of the way they're written, the way the lyrics are penned. Big fan of that. Watch Daily commented, the sax solo in the album just floors me. And we talked a little bit about it beforehand, before we came on air, about the female vocalist on the album. Just blows me away. Bill, I know you know her name. Her name's escaping me right now.
Claire Torrey.
There it is. So now, usually what we like to do is we'll go track by track, kind of put little comments on what we think. Here's something funny that maybe you guys could cue me in on that I'm not maybe understanding here. So I have the Dark Side of the Moon on vinyl, but when it comes to ease, I use Spotify to look up like albums and see the lyrics and things like that. And the first track off of Even Before Breathe is Speak to Me. And it's the only track that Spotify has listed as explicit. And I don't understand why.
I can tell you why. Speak to Me is a tape collage that Nick and Roger put together from various of all the songs from the album. One of the things they did when they recorded Dark Side was, in order to try and add some ambience to the record, they did quite a few interviews with people in and around Abbey Road Studios, asking them questions about, what do you ever think about death? Do you ever think about madness? Basically, just to get some flow of thought going through the album to try and get people thinking about some of the subject matter. Side comment on that, by the way, while they were recording Dark Side of the Moon, Paul McCartney was in an adjacent studio at Abbey Road. He was recording Wings' album Red Rose Speedway. So they actually asked him some of these questions. They ended up not using the McCartney comments because they thought he was a little bit too flippant. It really wasn't on point.
I believe it.
But the reason why Speak to Me is marked as explicit is because they were interviewing, I think, one of the janitors at Abbey Road, and he drops an F-bomb in the middle of his comments.
Oh, wow.
It's very much under the covers. You had to be listening, I think, with headphones to hear it, but it's there.
Gotcha.
That's also the thing about this album. If you listen to it in your phone, you hear something you never heard before. If you listen to it through headphones, you hear something you never heard before.
Yeah.
It's panned so, it's the whole album is an art form.
Well, the album was made originally with the thought that it was going to be quad.
Yeah.
Right. So we've been playing these songs for 10 years, and every now and then you hear, I never heard that before.
To Ryan, what Ryan's saying, that what floored me was listening to it in my car with the surround sound. And you're right, as far as the panning and as far as hearing things in different parts of my car, it was like really, really cool. And then it breaks into Breathe in the Air.
Yeah, that was the album that people tested their hi-fi on. If you wanted to test your speakers and everything, you put Dark Side of the Moon on.
It's one of the very first albums that Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs made a half-speed master of.
Yep, there you are.
Now, wasn't this the album that they paired with Wizard of Oz and
Dark Side of the Moon?
It sure was.
or something.
Yeah, Dark Side
of the Rainbow, or whatever you want to call it. Yes,
we learned that. We actually learned.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to. We were supposed to play over in Philadelphia at the Waterfront before the Waterfront got sold. Whoever got sold to, and they canceled all the shows. But we were supposed to do Dark Side of the Rainbow live Penn's Landing at the theater.
Oh wow! That
So
must
we
have
spent
been
Wow.
we spent a couple of months learning how to sync up with the video, which is really
Which exposed a lot of weird stuff, right? You're like, we're a little too fast
Yeah.
there. We're
a little too,
too
yeah,
slow
you know,
here.
right.
It
Yeah,
was-
you have to hit just the right cues
Yeah.
with the lyrics. So,
Oh,
but we
yeah.
did learn it. Yeah, we did get it together. We may do that someday.
That's pretty awesome.
So
That'd be a good returning to the Landis kind of thing.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
So, any thoughts on Breathe? Any highlights to that you guys come away with?
What I think the one thing that stands out to me, I play the lap steel on that, right? And it's an amazing lap steel part. And, I spent about a week trying to figure out why I couldn't get it just right. Why doesn't it sound, and realize that there's 2 lap steels that were recorded.
Wow.
And they're mixed perfectly
Oh.
together, which is why you cannot recreate that dreamy vibe. You can play the dominant one. And I tried as best as I can to play the dominant one that people hear. But when you listen back to that, you're like, oh, that is 2 different lap steels, isn't it? So there's a lot. So with that song, that specifically stands out to me.
Yeah,
They did a lot of that.
I think just the musically the whole feel of it, the music actually breathes. So that's something while you're playing it, you're trying to hit. Are we all breathing while we're doing this? And there's a lot of nice space in there, and keeping everything separated to the point where you can breathe while in the song, and when you're listening to it, you get the same feeling.
Yeah. And then it goes right from that to the little clip of On the Run. Little trying to see how long it says on the run. On the Run. What do you guys think?
it's a lot longer than you think.
Yeah.
I think I'm
It's like
looking at it right now.
3 minutes and 30
Trying to
seconds.
play it for an audience must be a challenge, I suspect.
Well, I do a bulk of that with my synth. We don't use a sample for it. We actually use. We laid out a progression very similar to what they did on the with VCF, and it's fun. Well, what we've discovered is it's fun when you have the video to go along with it.
Gotcha.
So
yeah.
so at our show, we have the whole guy laying in the gurney rolling, and it starts to coincide with the sounds that are going on, the samples that are going on. It really makes it a lot more exciting, a lot more energetic. When you just play it without that, and we're doing in a venue somewhere that may not have the ability, it's outside, we can't do the video. It doesn't have that effect. It's actually kind of boring for people when it's just rolling along like that. I mean, unless you're if you're a hardcore Floyd fan, then people want to hear it. But the casual person hears that and they're just like, it goes on for
Perfect.
after a minute.
To the theater show.
Yeah, it's boring after a minute. But
No, I mean, with that being said, I mean, just while you're talking about that, and as far as you guys as musicianly, this to you as well, Bill. I mean, theater's got to be the much better
oh yeah,
area for this type of music.
yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
Bill does Prague, and I know it's got to be a much better area as far as hearing that and experiencing that and playing that.
Yeah, well, Larry was discussing that with me this morning. What were you talking about, Larry, with the theaters versus?
It's nice to have a captive audience or something like that, and not to get off on a Roger Waters rant, but even he would start to get aggravated as they got larger, and would play in the stadiums because he wanted people to be quiet and listen to these pieces of music. So to play this music in a bar, I don't think it has the same effect. You really need to do not just musically, but visually. You need to. Pink Floyd was known not just for their music, but visually what they're presenting on stage. You didn't even really know they're kind of mysterious who they were as people. So it was really a visual and an audio thing. And I don't think it translates very well in a bar. So theater for sure.
Yeah.
A stage where you can set a tone is very helpful.
I mean,
I don't know if you guys had the opportunity, but Back in 1994, when Floyd toured the Division Bell, I got to see them on that
Oh
tour.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Iron
And of course, they
amazing.
played Dark Side Complete on
Yes.
that tour. And one of the things that was just totally took me back and to when I first heard Dark Side for the first time, and was just so amazing how they did it, was for On the Run at Giant Stadium, where when I saw them, they had set things up where the crashing airplane that ends the song went completely from one end of the stadium to the other and
Oh,
almost
yeah.
into the stage.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's a tremendous spectacle.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
it
was,
really was.
that
Yeah.
was great. Yeah, that was a phenomenal show. We saw that at
I think it was JFK.
no, that wasn't
No?
JFK. That was Momentary Lapse. Division Bell was Vet Stadium. We saw
That's right.
Vet
Yeah,
Stadium.
that's right. What a great place.
Yeah, it was great. And they did the whole the thing you were talking about with the airplane. They did that same thing because they actually do quad. We've talked about, we have the ability and the equipment to do quadraphonic. We've talked about it before, but it's just such a nightmare for the sound. Any sound guy to have to deal with. A whole separate mixer just for left and right rear channels, and it's just a pain. It's cool. For the amount of work that's involved, it's not that cool. It is interesting, but
Diminishing marginal returns.
Yeah,
You're going to pay a sound man a lot of money to jump through this.
For the few seconds for money to bounce around all four corners of the theater. As fun as that would be, it's expensive. Yeah.
So they go from On the Run to Time, and I'm sure, Bill, you're so well versed on all this stuff. The intro for that, the clocks. I know you got to have some kind of input to that.
Well, the intro to that wasn't even a Pink Floyd creation. That's all Alan Parsons. Parsons was one of the lead engineers at Abbey Road at the time Dark Side was made, and he was beginning to get interested in quadraphonic sound independently of the band. And so one of the things he did was apparently go to a store where they had all sorts of clocks and chimes or whatever to set up, and he set up a quadraphonic recording of all of that going off. So this was recorded deliberately from the beginning, separately from the band, to be a quad demo, if you will. And the guys in the band heard it, and thinking about how their song could fit to it, they said, we have to use this. And they did.
Now, maybe you guys can let me know also the beginning of that song. What instrument are they? It's not a drum. It's not a normal.
It's rototoms. It's
Okay.
rototoms, which were brand new at the time, and they had a set at Abbey Road, and from what I remember hearing, it was like, hey, here's these new things coming out of the box, and they decided to use them, and it's a great effect. And one of the great things about how that's recorded is, if you play a set of rototoms dry with no effects on them, there's not a whole lot to differentiate it between that and say a small concert tom, but just the reverb and the echo and the effect that they put on it really lends itself well to the intro.
Because everything in that first minute of that song, between the keyboards, like you said, the rototoms, the clock sounds, everything seems so big in that one aspect. And that's one of the things that really takes me with this song, is it feels grand as you're getting into it. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, I agree. In fact, the sample for the original clock sound is very loud when you're coming out of On the Run, which is very quiet at the end. You have footsteps and the clock ticking at the very end of that, trailing end, and then it's a big hit of all the clocks going off. Our bass player stands next to a PA monitor.
He knows it's coming.
Yeah, he has his hands over his ears every time that's going to go. And it just starts to trail off, but it's very loud from the beginning. But and that's actually, unlike, just like everything else with Floyd, it's very interesting trying to keep in. We have to be very careful about how we sequence it with the heartbeat. And Ryan, myself, and the bass player all coming in at the same time on the like bong, and then once we get that trail, we're good. We just stay in time from that. But getting everybody to hit at exactly that same moment is really interesting, and it's really huge. And then the drums come in with Tony there, and it's a lot of fun. I actually like playing the beginning of that. That's a lot of fun. That song.
And it's another one of those moments where they have 12 tracks of things going on.
Yeah.
And you only hear like 3 or 4, and you just think it's a simple thing, but it's so tough to recreate because of all the things that are missing.
Yeah. You
can only attempt to do your best.
Right.
And I mean, to the lyric end of that song, man, it's iconic. I mean, just that song alone is iconic. If there was any Pink Floyd song I would suggest for someone to listen to, it would definitely be Time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's as I get older, it becomes more and more relevant how time is kind of ticking away, right? And I've heard in interviews Roger would say, my mother would say to me, you need to think about the future, and you need to worry about what's coming up next, and what are you going to do? And this was what caused him to write this kind of lyric, that now is the time. Time is ticking away today. And again, as we get older now, doesn't that ring true? It's ticking away morbidly.
The lead in that song is just iconic, right?
It's incredible.
And it really is even though he was still kind of on the younger side when he it's the essence of it. And it's got the bends, it's got the big muff, it's got his whammy bar in there a lot if used properly. He sings on his guitar a little bit. It's got to be beautiful. You got to make people get chills listening to it, right? It's really tough to try to recreate. But
man, and then into the Great Gig in the Sky, just that extends to me. It feels almost like an extension of Time, the Great Gig in the Sky, and it's like I said, the vocalist on this and the sax and everything that's involved in this. Is this one that you guys play often?
Every time we do Dark Side, well, and in fact, this is kind of why we started playing Dark Side of the Moon. We were playing like Breathe, Time. We were playing a couple of songs for a little bit when we first got the band together, but we all kept bleeding into the next song and just kept going. I'm like, you know what? Let's just run right through and just do the whole thing. Let's get the whole thing going. And at the time, we didn't have an adequate female backup vocalist to do this. It's difficult. So we brought one in, and it changed the whole dynamic. It's very it's a little difficult for me starting it because there's no drums, there's no click, there's nothing, it's just me going along with it until we get Ryan on the guitar and whatnot, and it doesn't really start getting a timing until Victoria, who's our female back vocalist. So Victoria comes in and hits it. Then the drums and everything come in. It gets really huge. But we loved it. Everybody loves it. I warned Victoria the first time we played it. I said, listen, every time we play this, everybody screams and carries on. Like right after you do your first part, and then we break to the quiet, and then you do your second part. Everybody screams and carries on. I said,
it's the one people love most.
It happens. And it's like, oh, okay, and it happens every time because everybody loves it. It's for something that doesn't have any lyrics at all. It's incredibly recognizable. I think everybody knows that song.
I think like a lot of pieces on the record, it would be kind of a difficult piece to do as a standalone.
Right.
Not that you couldn't do it, but it almost seems disjointed or out of place to do it as a standalone between two other songs that aren't related. And you can say that to a great degree about the whole record. You're so used to hearing the tracks in order that something after a song, if you play something from The Wall after you play Time, it's going to sound a little odd to people. But we've done a lot of those Dark Side tunes as standalones. Time works well as a standalone. Money works well as a standalone. Great Gig as a standalone would be difficult.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can imagine that. Now, as far as the sax in there, is that something, Walt, that you kind of carry on with the keyboards, or have you guys ever played this with
Well,
live?
there's no sax in.
There's no sax in this
No, I'm
song.
wrong. I'm thinking of the wrong song.
Yeah.
There, but as far as sax, Ryan actually. So what happened with the sax was playing a saxophone on a keyboard, on a piano keyboard, or any kind of keyboard. The dynamic you get from that isn't quite what you would get from actually using, like, blowing on a saxophone.
Right.
However, Ryan uses a guitar synth for that, because using a guitar synth, you can get your bends and your trills. I mean, you can really dig into it, and it actually sounds way more like an actual saxophone coming from his guitar synth.
You can really slide in the notes.
Right.
I can't
get the attack on my keyboard like he can get bending a note or using his
right.
note, you know.
Oh, you're absolutely
I've been trying to
right.
get this down for years, right? It's not just something I started doing. It's I get a little bit better at it every year.
It sounds great though. Like, you wouldn't know. I have people approach me after shows all the time, and they're, "Oh, you did a great job on the sax solo." I'm like, "I didn't do that at all. That was Ryan." I said,
So it's one of the coolest things, because after the show, I always have at least 3 or 4 people that come up to me and say, "Holy crap, you were playing that on your guitar, weren't you?"
Yeah.
People were like, "Where's the horn coming from?"
A lot of people don't realize.
It's like,
Don't realize that.
wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it's all Ryan, and he does a great job at it. You know.
No, it's so great to hear that you do it that way too, because I know in my band, I play in Legion of Prague, and we do pretty much a whole bunch of prog rock songs, including some of the old King Crimson stuff, which uses saxophone.
Wow.
And our saxophonist uses exactly that technique
Right.
to do songs like Starless, for example.
Oh man.
Well, even Adrian Belew, I mean, the stuff he would do on his guitar, some of the synth, the string sounds, and just horn sounds beautiful.
Or things like Elephant Talk, for example. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah.
I wanted to go back to Great Gig for a moment, because we were talking a little bit about the qualities of that song and how it in some regards, doesn't really work as a standalone. I don't know if you guys know remember the history of it, but Rick Wright, I think, wrote that theme like 3 or 4 years before.
Yes.
He had written the song as part of a movie soundtrack for Antonioni's movie, Zabriskie Point. And so this was something that was revisited, thinking, "Oh, well, this might just fit here."
He actually wrote that. I watched an interview with him, and it was a particular piano progression that he liked, the way it moved, and he said he looked for years for a reason to use that progression in something, and it was interesting because that's actually how I learned how to play it, because tab is always wrong, and no matter what kind of sheet music you have, it's almost always wrong. So I wanted to watch him play it, and there's a really, really good video of him sitting at a grand piano talking about it. He goes, "I always thought this was a great, transition right here." He goes, "And I tried forever to work this in somewhere." He goes, and I ended up being able to do it for Great Gig in the Sky. But I actually watched him play. That's how I learned how to play Great Gig in the Sky.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Now go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think we were going to go to the same place. I think you were going to talk a little bit about Claire Torrey.
Yeah, man, just phenomenal. I mean, it's something that is almost indescribable, her voice in this, and just the way that she belts it out. And I'm excited to see you guys Saturday, because I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys do this and hear your vocalist. And it's something that I think doesn't get enough recognition for what it is.
Yeah.
That's a great piece.
Yeah, definitely lightning in a bottle. I mean, because that was just, she went in, scattered the whole thing, unscripted, and that was it. And they went, "Great," and took it. I mean, so it wasn't like, it wasn't a written piece or anything like that. So
it's also iconic. I've heard Walt say many times, you can't do this album without doing that song.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
There's no way to do that from
if we
beginning
went
to
out
end.
to the
Cut
Dark
that
Side of
one
the
out.
Moon and didn't
Yeah.
do Great Gig in the Sky, they'd burn the theater down. So yeah, if you're going to do the whole Dark Side of the Moon, you better do Great Gig in the
I'm glad I'm not singing it.
Yeah, right.
And I got to say, like, to go from Great Gig in the Sky into our next track, Money, I feel like the beginning of Money and the beginning of Time with the sound effect, kind of like I feel with the Great Gig in the Sky in the middle there, it was kind of almost like a circular type of routine in that. I could be wrong, but that's kind of the way that I view it.
Money's a pain in the ass, actually. The beginning, anyway. And Tony, we worked for a long time to get the timing around that because it's 7/8. Because there are 7 pieces to that sample and 1 is missing. So I guess Roger at the time when he created this in his wife's garden shed, actually, and with a big tape loop. And I guess he didn't consider, that maybe it should be 8 of these in order to get 4/4 or whatever the case may be. So there's a really bizarre timing to how you play this and drift it along, all the way up until the guitar lead, where then it changes time and runs and then goes back to that original time again. So it's a really difficult to do it. I mean, to do it right.
The sound effects, the 7 loops are not exactly in perfect time.
Right.
So you have to kind of mentally adjust a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Absolutely. But like you guys said, it's also one of those songs that gets you kind of get tired of hearing it because it's one of the ones that like classic rock radio will play once every hour.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And
Yeah.
this
and
was
there's
the one
so
that
much Floyd out there. You're like, there's more than this song. There's
this
more
was,
than this.
this was the trouble child of Dark Side of the Rainbow, because once you start to play it towards the movie, you realize that the song has 4 different tempos in it.
Right.
It's not just it starts out and then it goes. No, it has a journey of its own as far as tempo wise.
Right.
You just kind of have to capture all those.
And that's kind of the beauty. We talk about this a lot. This is kind of the beauty of analog recording too, right? That's so organic and we really enjoy so much. There's these little mistakes, there's these little timing issues and things that aren't perfect. They're not a copy and a slice and now how we can drag a sound up here and we can correct that. There's something really endearing about all that.
Well, I always think too, like Larry said with analog recording, one of the failures, and I hate to sound like the old codger that doesn't like new music, but well, right. I mean, needless to say, a lot of new music is people that really have, and I've listened to a couple of producers say this. They talk about it in the Sound City documentary.
Oh yeah.
There are people out there that really are making music that have no business making. And there was a big difference between Roger Waters going out into a garage with a bowl, throwing change into a bowl and hitting a cash register and recording that and then running a piece of tape around microphone stands. And people that have no creativity to do anything anymore, work with special effects.
Yeah.
Dave Gilmour's reverse engineering of the wah pedal for echoes, for example, when he does the whole wait, that's actually a backward wired wah pedal, and he uses his volume knob to cause the effect. People wouldn't do that now because they could just use some plug-in on a computer or something like that now, and it takes away, I think, a lot of the creativity that we got from our music. Because people actually had to work to get that sound. And they might do something in trying to get that sound that was accidental and go, hey, you know what, that was really cool. That accident doesn't happen now because they just, put a plug in and go, okay, use that, and it's unfortunate, I think. I think we lost a lot with that.
I think it's something that you can absolutely hear the difference in, though. I think you can definitely hear when they're using an electronic or a keyboard sound or a synth or a computer track to put something in that isn't necessarily like you're saying, like you can definitely tell the difference.
Well, right. I mean, for years, for the first 5-6 years in the band, the intro to Shine on You Crazy Diamond, I banged my head against the wall, and I have a lot of synthesizers, and I went through every synth sound trying to find out what the sound was, and no matter what I did, it just did not sound right. The intro. Well, come to find out, it's wine glasses. It's water glasses with them running their fingers around top water glasses from an album that they were going to put out called Household Items. It was called Our Household Things, and it was wine glasses, trash can lids, all that kind of stuff. And they took that piece and put it in there. And when I finally found it, I'm like, wine glasses. So now we use a sample of the actual wine glasses. Well, you'll hear that's one song we're doing, but we use the actual wine glass sample from that album with the organ and string layer on top of it. But I beat my head against the wall trying to do that. But that just goes to show you one of those things that you can't recreate mechanically, like with an electronic device, and make it sound like that.
Right.
That actual sound from wine glasses. So.
Back when I was a little boy, it's starting to sound kind of old.
There's
a lot of good music out there. You got to look for it. Yeah,
and with that, getting into a little of another kind of division in us and them. This was another highlight off the album that I really, really like a lot. What do you guys think as far as us and them?
I think I love the song. As I said when you asked originally, it's one of my favorites. Was very tricky for Larry. Larry runs his own vocal effects. So the us, and them, that trigger, and we all have to be in time with that repeat in order for it to work right. So it's really tricky. And Larry does it.
So if I miss
earlier, and then they cut that and placed those perfectly in the album.
Right.
Us.
Yeah, but
where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So even though a digital effect has a perfect algorithm to it, you can't recreate it.
Larry,
it's very
does a great job though. Yeah.
Easy to mess up. So if I don't hit that like a millisecond before that repeat, it's off. So it's for me, it's not. The effect is great. As long as I hit it right. If I don't hit it right.
The wonderful thing about the song, lyrically, the music fits it so well, but the dynamics in that song really make it and really bring it out and really bring out the the ideas that they're trying to convey with it. That's one of the things I really like about that song.
I agree. And in fact, well, it's funny you should say the vocals. That particular one has a 3-part male harmony that I really, really like. We had played it for maybe a couple of years and didn't realize that there's a third lower male harmony that kind of tracks down instead of tracking up everything else. And we found it before we did a gig at the Colonial, like 15 years ago. And Larry and I are all excited. It was like, hey, man, that's really cool. So now when we do it, I hear that every time we do it now, and the blend is really cool. But we didn't realize it was missing per se. We're really bad. We sit around and listen to this and dissect it.
As far as this part of the album, I like when we get this far because I've been so busy up until this point, and I finally just get to sit back and just do the sax solo for the entire song. Right? It's got a big sax piece, but it's the first time I usually start to look at the audience. And I always notice that people really enjoy us playing this song.
Yeah.
Like there's always people, it's by that point in the album, it's just.
Yeah, people love it.
It's a great ride. And then just us and them,
I think what's really signature with Floyd too, and I've heard other people say this, it's not something I've come up with, but what they do so great, it's not what they play, it's what they don't play. It's the time between. They take their time. They're so relaxed and they leave so much space for things. They'll sit on a chord or a note for like half a minute to a minute and they'll just go. So that song has a lot of that. It's just really even tempered. It takes its time. And they do that. It's the notes that they don't play that makes them really interesting, I think.
And that
really extends to the saxophone too. I mean, we didn't really talk about the sax solo on Money. That's where we first hear Dick Parry on the album.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
I mean, he's so aggressive and in your face during Money, and then so understated on Us
Yeah.
and Them.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And I go from playing guitar in Money to doing that sax solo to doing the first solo and then the second solo, and then it's a stretch of like 4 minutes of, it's fun. It's a good time.
And going back to what Larry was saying, as far as the space in between notes, and like that's something that like was a foundation of classical music as well. This is something that's been around for a very long time that not many people really used in their arsenal like Pink Floyd did. And it's that classical feel. Like you can almost include Pink Floyd in classical music just because of the way that it's constructed.
Sure.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of people in all kinds of genres talking about space and leaving space, and you hear, of course, it's ever present in classical music, but you hear a lot of jazz artists talk about it, and you hear a lot of highly trained people talk about that concept. The interesting thing, I think, with the exception of Rick Wright, I don't think any of the other members were what you would be considered classically or highly trained musicians.
Sure.
But it's something, I think through their natural progression, they developed that over to their credit, they developed that feeling, that technique over time, which is interesting because it almost feels when you listen to their catalog and you reach that point, it's something that you can feel is building and building. It's definitely there in metal, and they seem to develop that.
And then we go from Us and Them, into the last instrumental on the album, Any Color You Like. I know one of you guys, I can't remember who said it was one of their favorites, but what do you guys think instrumentally, as far as a musician, this song kind of feels to you?
It's fun. I'm not as a keyboard player. I don't tend to go off or free for all or ad lib anything. I tend to generally stick to whatever the program is. This is the one song where I kind of go sideways. I mean, I play the key pieces, but there's a lot of stuff going on in between where I'm layering on top of Ryan's lead, and so I actually get to be a little more fluid on this than anything that we play, really. So that's kind of fun. I have a good time.
I've never seen a lot about that piece. The one thing I'd be interested to know, it has a very improvised jam kind of quality to it, and it feels that way when you listen to it. I've just always wondered how much of it was composed, and how much was them just sitting down in a studio and jamming. One of the things that would kind of lend me to think that it's composed to a certain degree is, there's a lot of upbeat rhythmic kind of things that are being done in unison. That's very interesting. And some of the places where, the lead guitar and the drums are hitting rhythms, in unison at the same time. So,
We're losing your voice, Tony.
Yeah,
What is your voice?
is it your speaker?
I'll let you guys go.
There
There.
you go. Now you're
Back.
Came back.
I might have had my finger over my mic.
Operator error.
But it's certainly fun to listen to, and it's, for me, it's a very fun piece to play.
One thing that makes me think it's composed, and that's an excellent point that you just made on that, Tony.
Yeah.
One thing that I think makes me think that it's composed is how the reverb that's used on the keyboards is just so in time with what's going on with the rest of the band.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be possible to have done that if it wasn't tightly composed to a point.
Yep.
Right.
And then if you listen to, I'm a big fan of bootlegs, and if you listen to like the Brighton tapes, where they're actually playing a lot of this stuff live before they went in the studio and recorded it, that whole sequence really, a lot of it is, besides the keyboards, there was a lot of David Gilmour playing, But that underlying foundation's there. Very, very cool to listen to some of those. You can find them on YouTube now, but back in the day, I would download bootlegs of this stuff, and I got stacks of them.
Well, our friend Chris still runs the Echoes Web Hub. Free plug for you guys. The Echoes Web Hub has a whole ton of like bootlegs for old Floyd shows and some old prog shows. Actually, we've got a couple bootlegs from a couple of our old shows up there too. When Chris lived in the area, he used to come to our shows a lot, which was nice. So.
Any Color You Like is a fun song guitar wise. One of the cool things about it is the Phaser 90 that he used, right? It's a lot. There's a lot of it on the album, and he uses that pedal a lot. And the cool thing is, when you get that pedal, it's just got a dial on it, and that song, the speed of it for Any Color You Like is just all the way up. So when you crank it to 11, you get that right, and it's cool because that's how it starts out, and then it's a little bit of distortion for the lead, and it's the same effect on there. But I've tried to recreate that effect through some digital recreations, and the analog pedal is just so much better. But again,
what Walt was saying before about stretching the lip equipment to its limits to be able to get the most out of it.
So it's cool. I get to start out, and then I just stop playing, and then Walt does his keyboard thing, and then when I finally come back in, that was another difficult lead to learn because you have the rhythm part underneath, but then there's two lead guitar tracks playing that, and they're side by side, and the way they mesh stuff together, it's you kind of just hear one guy playing, but there's definitely two tracks. So, but again, you learn the dominant one, and I really went through that and did as best as I could to learn every single pick that he does on that. So just trying to recreate that section of the album. So,
and then we get into the very end of this album. I like I said earlier, I don't think I can't separate Eclipse from Brain Damage.
Near way.
I think it's all one piece. So I'd like to talk about that as one piece. But Brain Damage and Eclipse, like I said, lyrically, it's a haunting song. It really makes you think of different things, and it also, one of the things that I took away with it that we mentioned earlier was the panning of the song and the way different sounds are in different speakers. And what do you guys think as far as Brain Damage and Eclipse, and how powerful or non-powerful, if you think, was this as an ending to this album?
Well, as I said, it's one of my favorites on the album. So I thought I think it's a great ender. And the build up going into Eclipse. Matter of fact, just recently I started singing the backups with Larry on this. And there's a lot of lyrics going on there. All that you say and all that you do. And I mean, that whole build up at the end there, and everybody coming in at the end and all the vocals, it's a really, really big finish to the album. And what's great is, it sucks down to nothing with just the heartbeat and there is no dark side of the moon, really. As a matter of fact, it's all dark. That whole method of doing that, I always like that anyway. Anytime somebody does that, so.
And again, they do that that reoccurring theme. We start out with a heartbeat, we end with a heartbeat. I love that about Pink Floyd. We could talk about the Animals album too sometime, and they do a lot of stuff like that where there's this reoccurring theme that just keeps coming back.
Well, the technique that they use with the repeating phrasing that you just mentioned, Walt, in bringing Eclipse to its final ending, they pretty much did the same thing in Dogs too. A few years later.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's very much like that.
Both pieces together, intended to and effectively a crescendo for a climax for the whole thing.
Now, as far as now, you guys do this professionally as far as Brain Damage is concerned. In your list of Pink Floyd albums, where would Dark Side of the Moon rank as far as on your top 5 list?
As far what we like, or how well, or what we like to perform?
As far as your personal taste is concerned.
my favorite is Animals, to be honest, and I actually like performing that the most. But as a band, we've become so proficient at Dark Side. I really like playing Dark Side because it's almost, we just totally gel on it every time. And
Don't jinx us.
Yeah, knock wood. But yeah, it's Dark Side's the one I think we really enjoy playing together as a band. But Animals is actually my favorite of all of them, to be honest.
How about you, Ryan?
I'd have to say playing Dark Side is my favorite, just because it's it's a 48-minute long song.
Yeah, but what's your favorite album though?
I'm gonna say Dark Side. That's my favorite album. It's just I love a lot of the others, but there's just something so unique about Dark Side of the Moon.
Larry?
So here's my ranking of the top 5.
He's thought about that.
Right? Well, Animals, number 1. I love Animals. It's a great piece of music. It's really it's violent, really, lyrically at times, and it's got a lot of angst. I mean, that's the point, right? But it really comes across. It's one of the most disturbing pieces of music. Parts of it are really, especially if you listen to it with the cans on, it can. There's some things going on in there that are pretty deep. Dark Side of the Moon 2 for me. Wish You Were Here. And then, The Wall. You know what? I think I may even like Metal more than The Wall.
I like Metal more than The Wall. Yeah.
To be honest with you. Metal is where Dark Side of the Moon kind of comes about, right?
We've never done that one, though.
So that's one. We're doing some songs from
it. Some songs.
Yeah. I'm just not.
You're talking about Echoes. We have not. We haven't done the entire.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Right. We would like to do that. That's a really tricky bit there, though, because I love it. It's very, very difficult to try to get an entire audience of people to sit still for that entire side, unless they're hardcore, because you have the whole stuff going on in the middle. I mean, there's a lot of noise going on that the casual Floyd fan that's coming into here comfortably numb and Wish You Were Here isn't. It's a rough sell to do the whole. And Seamus is a little rough to do. Mamas on the Ops, however you want to refer to it, on that album is a little bit rough for people. But I'd love to do the entire Metal album. I do Echoes, and we talk about it all the time. We get into this state where we're like, oh, let's go out and do Echoes. But the reality is, it's probably not. It would have to be a very special thing that we were doing. We were coming out and doing an event that it was going to be. Specifically, we're doing Metal with Echoes somewhere.
So how about you, Tony? Favorite album?
Well, maybe for different reasons than the other folks, but I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for Animals, only because I'm a little older than these guys, but I was a freshman in high school when they were touring Animals. So it just kind of brings me back to that time, and it was really, had become a part of my consciousness at that point. So maybe for nostalgia reasons more than others, I have a soft spot for Animals. I would have to say, Wish You Were Here and Dark Side are definitely like 2 and 2A. I love them both. But if I had to pick a favorite, I think I'd have to say Animals.
Awesome.
Larry and I actually were introduced to Pink Floyd because of Wish You Were Here. My father worked at Columbia Records in Pittman and used to when we were kids, we used to get free records all the time. So he came in. Now, granted, this is 1975. We were young. And he handed us Wish You Were Here, not really having any idea what it was he was handing us. And and here Larry and I are throwing it on the record player just to know what you're here. So that's how we got started with Pink Floyd. It was my father giving us.
It was actually quite frightening to me.
Yeah, it was afraid. We were afraid.
You got a burning guy on the front cover, and there's some guy with no face on the inside. So
well, yeah, because we were
the gatefold was scary.
Yeah,
as
we
a
were
little kid. I was
yeah,
like,
Larry
whoa.
Larry was like, what were you, 4 years old? I guess
Probably
75. You're 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like 7, and here we go. Like Larry said, you got this invisible
scary.
Welcome to the Machine was playing, and we were like, "Holy crap, what's this?" Yeah. So, but we thought about it after that all the time. We talked about that album a lot after that. And,
yeah.
And it really got us, into Pink Floyd, I think.
But I think if you talk to the band collectively, almost everybody would agree that performing Dark Side is our favorite.
Oh yeah. It's because it's just one. It's one piece.
It's one song. Yeah,
and
it's beautiful. It just flows perfect.
Everything flows together really nicely. It has a little of everything. Lyrically, it's great. It's just a great piece of music.
And as a performer, it's challenging. So you have that when it's done very well. There's a great sense of accomplishment and gratification with that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. As far as Saturday night at the Landis is concerned, tickets, how do people go about getting them? And like we said in the beginning of the show, these guys have sold a good amount. This show is really close to selling out, folks. So if you want to go, you got to get your tickets soon.
Yeah.
And
it's an unusual. It's not unusual, but we keep getting a lot of people going, "Oh, is this assigned seating?" Because the Trocadero, for example, wasn't
right.
So yes, it's assigned seating. The center section is pretty close to being full. The left and right wings aren't. However, the Landis, if you've never been there, phenomenal sight lines. No matter where you sit in the theater, I mean, it's just a really well done. The layout is perfect. These guys, as I was saying before, you guys. The owner Ray of the Landis did an absolutely unbelievable job fixing the place up. It's beautiful. The light top notch, the sound's top notch, everything.
Well, tell the folks at home how they can get tickets.
Getting tickets, you can go to www.thelandistheater. Is that what it is? Thelandistheater.com.
Yeah.
And tickets are $20. They're going to have tickets at the door if we have any left over. But definitely would, this is going to be a really big show for us. We're pulling out all the stops, big light show, videos, the band's coming out and doing, like I said, we're going to do the whole Dark Side of the Moon album, which we just discussed. And we do it, the heartbeat at the beginning, the heartbeat at the end. That's it. There is no gaps, none of that. It just runs completely along, just like the record album. So,
I got to say, guys, as far as the Landis Theater is concerned, if you guys are able to get there a little bit early, Casey's upstairs is awesome.
Unbelievable.
They are a great place to kind of pregame it a little bit.
Yeah.
Might be the best barbecue chicken sandwich I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, their burger was phenomenal too. And the people there, I'm telling you, the people at that theater, and we've played a lot of theaters, they couldn't be nicer. I mean, this is the nicest crowd of people. Everybody we ran into, the bartender, the guy who was serving us there, the people that run the place, they're absolutely outstanding.
It's a terrific place. And
Absolutely.
One thing I'll say, as far as what you guys have accomplished with this show, I mean, we're talking about how many tickets you've sold in advance of the show. I was at the Landis this past Saturday night. They had a band there called Project. Which, if you're familiar, I mean, these are guys who are star-level musicians with other bands, from Saga, Oxbeard, and the like.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
They sold 120 seats. You guys have sold over 3 times that.
Yeah, it's
that's a shame.
It's a shame, really. Yeah, I talked to the sound man about that last night, actually, because I was touching base with him to make sure we had all our ducks in a row, and we were talking about Project because I saw a couple of the videos that they put out of that show, and I was stunned. I had to work, or I would have gone down to see it because I saw the collection of musicians who were going to be there. Like you said, Saga, Spocksbeard, and I'm like, why are they only selling like 120 tickets? Because it was a great collection of music they were doing too. That's a hard sell though. A night of all kinds of different prog is a really rough sell because a lot of people you have to be a prog fan And some people are, I love Genesis or I love Pink Floyd, but they don't care about King Crimson or ELP or what have you. So it's a rough sell. It's a shame. I would have hoped they would have sold more, and I hope they have them back because they were really.
Yeah. Now, my band does a lot of the same type of approach as Project does. We cover the entire prog spectrum. So I definitely hear what you're saying as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happened with Project, and this might have been their management more than it was an issue with the Landis, I think they had 5 different shows in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area in the space of like a week and a half.
Okay, that's never good.
Yeah, that's never no, and that wouldn't be that. That's not the Landis. That's Project's management, and that's just a bad plan. I mean, as I said, we do about 5 shows a year. We generally play Music Fest, which is 2.5 hours from here out in Bethlehem. We'll play way down south in Delaware somewhere maybe, or in Philadelphia or out in PA. We're hoping to be, doing the Landis regularly, and this be our home base in South Jersey. Like if you want to see us and you're from South Jersey, you're going to have to come to the Landis, and we want to do that like once a year. We don't do bars, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. So we try to do, when we go out and put a show on. Larry and I were talking about this today. We want to give people their money's worth. So if you pay $20 to come see us, we want to give you a giant show. We want to give you way more than $20 worth of music and presentation and video and stuff. So it's going to be fun. I think everybody's really going to enjoy it. We are.
The other thing I want to say about the Landis that, I've been to so many different theaters, so many old traditional theaters that got revamped into concert venues. One thing that I like about the Landis is the seats are not like you're not shoulder to shoulder sitting in your seat like you are in some of the old type theaters. These are nice plushy kind of, you can relax in these chairs. And on a Saturday night, marijuana is legal in New Jersey and you got Brain Damage playing, you're going to need some lounging room.
You're absolutely right about the seats in there. It's funny. There's a lot of shows to play up in what's that theater over in Philadelphia? I can't remember the name, but the guy we tried to, not the Fillmore. It's not in Philadelphia. It's up a little bit.
The Keswick.
The Keswick.
Oh my God. The Keswick seats are about this big, and they all lean forward like this.
Yes.
I have to go see a chiropractor after going to see a show. And it's a shame because they have a lot.
It's a great venue.
Surgically removed from the seats.
It's hard to.
It's a great venue, but everything, the whole time you're leaning like this and sitting like this. Like this is the most uncomfortable seat I've ever been in.
They were great for Charlie Chaplin films back in the day.
Yes.
That's about right.
But beautiful. I mean, beautiful old venue. It's getting harder and harder to find. We used to play the Trocadero, closed now, gone, and it's a shame.
Heartbreak.
We loved playing there. Our booking agent was booking that theater for a while.
Walking down that hallway for the bands in the back, I always wondered how the hell Guar came down that hallway with all their equipment on.
Yeah, I don't. I saw so many bands there, and when we played there, it was the history of the place. Like how many fabulous bands that I stood at in that audience and watched, and now it's gone. And there's a lot of the theaters just have, are dropping offline now. So the fact that Ray spent all of his time and money into this thing, because I'll tell you what, the Landis 10 years ago or whatever. I've seen pictures of it. I couldn't believe what it looked like. I mean, it was literally falling down. And this place looks beautiful. It's spectacular. Amazing. And he's actually building Casey Ray's is upstairs, which is there. And that's a little venue too. They have live bands perform up there. They're putting like a sports bar type thing like that on the first floor with an outside seating area coming up. It's already pretty much done. They're just doing some finishing stuff on it and whatnot. But he showed it to us. It's amazing. He's going to have.
Ray just gets it, right?
It's a great spot to go. I mean, because now you have a place where you can eat and have a couple of drinks. Go see a great show. Go upstairs and see a live band afterwards, and eat and have a couple of drinks. It's fantastic. I mean, I can't brag enough about it. And like I said, a nicer crew of people you couldn't meet. They're all fantastic.
Now, my last question for you guys is, as far as social media pages, if people want to keep up to date with future tour dates, things along those lines, how do people go about finding you guys online?
Okay, well, we have a website. It's www.braindamageband.com. We have links to all our social media sites on there. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and an Instagram page. I don't really know that much about Instagram. Honestly, Larry knows way more than that. If you want to tell them the Instagram site, Larry, I don't know what the link is.
It's on our braindamageband.com. I don't know the link off the top of my head.
We're actually hoping we're a little bit new to Instagram. The past few years, we're actually hoping that a bunch of people start, while they're at the show, take some videos and whatnot. We have some from Music Fest and stuff, but this is the first theater where we would like to try to get some people in there, getting some good shots of us on Instagram, so we can, show them off, show the theater off a bit, which would be cool. So, but yes, we have our Brain Damage page on Facebook is. Well, I can tell you the link now. I can never remember it either. Actually,
it's Brain Damage /
it's / Brain Damage, a tribute to Pink Floyd is what it is. And actually, it's funny that that's what it is, because there's been a little contention over the years. Like, if you'll see some of our advertising, we advertise ourselves as a tribute to the Pink Floyd. And, several people have come at us with, what's the Pink Floyd? I'm like, well, to be honest, it's the Pink Floyd sound if you really want to get down to it. Mm-hmm. I said, so we started out as a tribute to the Pink Floyd. I said, it wasn't until like Dark Side where they dropped the. I said, and they dropped the Pink Floyd sound off at, Adam Hart Mother. So
this is one of our posters, Walt, from an old show, and I make YouTube videos sometimes in this room. I have a YouTube channel. And some guy said the other day, I love the fact that says the Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd, right? Yeah, we get asked that all the time. We're like, why are you going to attribute to the Pink Floyd? And our advertising for this show, just to make it easier for people, is a tribute to Pink Floyd, to not drive everybody berserk. But we are a tribute to Pink Floyd on Facebook. So awesome. You can find us there, and we're on like pretty much every music site out there. But if you go to our website, we have a link to every social media platform, and we're on rock roll YouTube too. So you can always find us.
Drop everything on there. Yeah, you already do, Walt, but yeah, drop. Guys, you can easily keep up to date with them on our page as well. So we're big sponsors, not sponsors, but supporters of you guys. So really, guys, thank you so much for hanging with us tonight, man. Taking time out of your busy schedules to kind of hang and talk Pink Floyd, man. Can't wait to hang with you guys Saturday.
Can't wait to see you Saturday, man. It's gonna be great.
Looking forward to hanging out and checking out the whole show Saturday night, man. Guys, I'm telling you, get your tickets now before they sell out. But Walt, Tony, Ryan, Larry, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
You.
See you on Saturday.
Thank you, guys.
On Saturday.
Thank you much, guys.
Have a great night, guys.
See you now.
Hold on for one second. I kind of deleted too many people there, Bill.
I was wondering what was going on there.
So this was the end of our vinyl siding preview. We're going to, if you guys like what we do, we're going to be doing it every Saturday morning. We got different albums we're going to be doing. May 14th is our kickoff show. We're going to be reviewing the Aerosmith album Rocks with a kick-ass all-female Aerosmith tribute called Ragdolls. Really looking forward to that. We're going to be bringing in more tributes, special guests, things along those lines. People that actually really love the music that we're talking about. And Bill, thank you so much for hanging, and really looking forward to kicking off this next chapter.
No, I am too, definitely. And I'll say it just in case you weren't planning to. For people who are watching us, if you like what we're doing, and if there are specific albums you want us to see cover, please let us know. I mean, we're open to suggestions, and we want to make this show what you want to see.
That's exactly right. And so, guys, don't forget, you got a kick-ass weekend ahead of you. Friday night, we're going to be at McStew's in Levittown, Rock and Roll Union, doing 6 Second to Mars. And Final Warning, a female-fronted metal tribute. And then Saturday night, we're going to be at the Landis Theater doing Brain Damage, the Pink Floyd tribute. The gentleman that we just talked to, make sure if you guys want tickets for that show, go online now, get them. They'll be available. Tickets for the Friday night show will be available at the door. They'll be $10 to get in, and be really, really happy to see you guys. So, Bill, once again, man, thank you so much.
CT, always a pleasure. We'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Guys, you have a great rest of your week, and remember, don't just leave it. Leave it better. Have a good night, guys.